विभा व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat Sat. So I would share the text as we proceed. Um, yeah. So we were at the verse number 100. Now, what are we discussing? We are discussing two things. One is that the Vedantic texts, especially the Upanishads, and also the Bhagavad Gita and the allied Vedantic texts such as the Brahma Sutras, several other Puranas, they point at one thing, that what we see all around us through our senses, whatever we see is not necessarily ultimately real. They are phenomenally real. We are dealing with them, but they are not real per se. Without any tax, with some qualifications, we can deal with them, and we do deal with them. But they are not fundamentally the ultimate truth to embrace. The ultimate truth is that these dualities are only apparent. The absolute truth lies in the Satchidananda Swarupa, knowledge, existence, knowledge, and bliss. Sat is existence. That means we are denying the anti-foundational or the nihilistic theories that there is nothing, it's just an appearance. As, say, for example, the emptiness theories of Buddhism would like to point out that they say everything is a mental construction. But for any mental construction to be possible, there should be a trigger, and that is the foundation, that is the substratum. And Ananda, because Sat is not a material truth, it's conscious, it's consciousness. And Ananda, because if there is no happiness, if there is no bliss, what is the point of even talking about Brahman? So that absolutely is there, and that is the reason as to why we should try to realize ourselves, because we are not different from that. However, there are a lot of philosophical schools who, with their own logical frameworks, their own arguments, try to present a picture that these realities are not transient or ephemeral, they are really real. How do we deal with them? Should we fight with them? In the verse number 100, Vidyaranya Muni says, Sankhya Kanada Baudhadehi Jagat Bhedo Yatha Yatha Utprekshate Neka Yuktya Bhavatyesha Tatha Tatha. He's saying we don't have any reason to fight with them. They have their own logical or their own narratives, their own explanatory frameworks. Within that, they think that these are absolutely real. This whole world is real. And he's saying, Adi Savdena Charvaka Shaiva Vaishnavadaya Suchita. Why Charvaka and Vaishnava in the same group? Because Charvaka is Nastika, Shaiva and Vaishnavas are Astika. Because you see, the Vaishnavas and Saivas, except for Kashmiri Shaivism, they accept Sauguna Brahman to be the ultimate absolute divine reality. The absolute is Vishishta with some qualifications. He's Saguna, is a qualified, That's why it's called qualified Advaita of Ramanujacharya. Therefore, they has added, and Charvaka says there is nothing, no God, nothing. Both of them do not accept non-duality. They accept, in a sense, monism. Yes, they are monists in a certain sense, but they accept some form of duality, some form of, some people are Vedavadis, Dvaitavadis, Achintya Veda. The different schools of thought within the Vaishnava school, the parampara. Tehi yatha yatha jagat bhedo jagat vaichitriam aneka yuktya utprekshate. They have their own ways. They wish to prove the existence of these multiple diverse realities. Sahaja buddhi vaishamyena vivinnataya prati Baditaha. How do you do it? Sahaja buddhi vaishyamyena. They are not looking at what is the real insight in the Upanishads. They look at the Laukika theories. What is there in everyday life? Yes, we are waking up, we are taking food, we are going to the hospital, we are going to the airport. We are doing a lot of things. We are marrying of our children. We are taking care of people in need. So Dvaita Prapancha, this is absolutely real. They would ask you some very difficult questions. You mean to say, if I follow Advaita Vedanta, there is so much of suffering in the world. What should I do? That's a very powerful question. And Advaita Vedanta school does have answers. They do give that. Of course, compassion has to be there. It's not that you become stoic or indifferent or ignore everybody, everything as a joke. No, that's not the reality. At a phenomenal reality, we have to do everything, and yet we accept that ultimately all these are appearances. Tatha tatheva jagatavodho vyavahariko bhavato nama. These are vyavaharika, means phenomenal. In the material realm, in our everyday life, we will accept them. There is no difference. It doesn't make any difference to our foundational belief in absolute non-duality. Na asmakang teisaha vivada iti bhavaha. We don't have anything to pick up a fight or quarrel with them. We had finished until here, and then we'll move forward from here. Okay. And in the next verse now, what does he say? सांख्यादिभिः अङ्गीकृतं द्वैतमपि प्रामाणिकम् इति अभ्युपगम्यते त्वया एवं परमतम् अप्रतिसिद्धम् अनुमतं भवति इति तत्कृत अद्वैत अवज्ञया अपि प्रामाण्यापतिः इति आशंक्य आह अवज्ञातम् इति. There is a powerful fear there. First of all, you are saying that I'm not going to fight with any of these people. Yeah. So you're saying I'm not going to fight. Okay, fine. But don't you think by agreeing with them, you are actually refusing your own position? You're saying I don't have any fight with them. So if they are true, how can you be true? That's one question which is always pointed at. A lot of interpreters of modern Hinduism by the reformists and the neo-Vedantists, because Swami Vivekananda said that we not only tolerate your faiths or diversity of faiths, because all rivers lead to the ocean, so all paths lead to the absolute divine. We not only tolerate you, but we accept you. And that's used by the Abrahamic faiths for those who have and they have very strict organized religion. They would say, so you agree with us, so what is the point? Hinduism can accept anything, so I'll go to the church, I'll read Quran, and absolutely not a problem. But then what is the point of saying that? Where do you score a point? Why should I accept your point as the ultimate truth? That is not well explained in this. And Vidyaranya Muni explains that absolutely. I'm not saying my religion is supreme. I'm only saying that my religion is supreme, the one who says he's in ignorance. I am saying there is a supreme truth. It's yours and mine and all others. There is that supreme divine reality, Satchidananda Swarupa. I'm saying there is a supreme. I'm not saying it's my supreme and your supreme. In organized religion, for example, if you look at the Bible, they say that our God is a jealous God. So if you believe in somebody else, he's going to punish you. And that similar thing is also there. Of course, there are certain liberal statements. Even in Quran, they say, you onto my path and me onto mine. That is there in Surah 16 or something. Long back, I was looking at it. Difficulties with translation, because if you don't know Arabic, whatever you read can be very misleading. But these texts, of course, we are not having real access to the Hebrew text of Bible, but there are multiple voices even within the Bible, because Jesus says, let's you and I argue together. Let's have a conversation, but argue together without fighting. what is in our spiritual or philosophical tradition, we call it Vada Katha. We fight with each other, not to defeat one another, but to search for a higher truth. There'll be a synthesis, is the higher point. There are two contrary views, but the point of a debate is, in fact, to reach to the higher end. So, the question which is arising here is that if you are saying, I don't have any fight with all these people, then you are doing Dvaita Avagya. You are ignoring your own position. That's a doubt. And therefore, he's answering that doubt in the next verse. Jnata sadadvaitam nisankair anyavadivihi evam kakyatirasmakam tadvaitam avajanatam. All these people, in very simple terms, is hammering home the fundamental point. All these people, nisankaihi anyavadivihi sad advaitam avagyatam, without any fear of any contradiction, without any doubt whatsoever, all these philosophers who are not in line with Advaita Vedanta, who do not recognize the inner truth in the Upanishads, they don't know that the non-dual truth, Sadeva Somya Idamagar Ase, Brahman is one, it's conscious, it's blissful, they realize it. And without any doubt, because they are obsessed with their own frame of reference, their own school of thought. When it is so, tehi yat dvaitam abhyupagamyate, and they accept duality and diversity and multiplicity. They accept it. Avajanatam asmakam kakshatihi. What is our loss? Why should I fight with them? It's the wise boy. That is a fight between 4 5 boys. They're calling names to this boy. And some of his friends or his younger brothers or whoever he is. So they are making fun of you. You don't have any problem? And this boy who's wise, he says, no, I don't have any problem. I mean, I know that they don't know what I'm doing. They don't know who am I. They're just trying to make fun of me. I got no problem. He has the inner truth in his heart and he's pretty peaceful. He absolutely has no confusion whatsoever. Right? I remember long back, there was a little boy, very confident. He used to read a lot of books and he was barely 4 or 5. And he bought a yellow t-shirt with some pink stripes or something. And then he had invited his friends to the birthday party. And there was a girl who was about 3 4 years elder to him, one distant cousin. He said, oh, you have chosen yellow and pink. This t-shirt looks like something which a girl should wear. Are you a girl? She was trying to pull his leg, but seriously. And then 3 4 other girls ganged up with her. And this little boy, he says, yeah, so it's something girls like. So what's the problem? And they said, so, you're effeminate? Are you a girl? He smiles. He says, oh, you think I'm a girl? I got no problem. What's the problem? I liked it and I purchased this. In a way, innocently. When the Advaita Vedanta knows the truth, what is that truth? The truth is the absolute Sachidananda Swarupa is what is hinted in all the Upanishadic texts. Is ultimately that alone is real. Now, you have your own theological arguments to say that the God should be personal, otherwise I'm feeling emotionally let down. Swami Vivekananda was challenged by several missionaries. But your Brahman doesn't have any compassion, doesn't have any love. How do you live? We have a personal relationship with our God. Swami Vivekananda didn't fight with them. He says, because you do not understand, we absolutely are not opposed to the idea of a personal God, and that is also part of the journey. Part of the journey doesn't mean the destination. The destination is the ultimate equanimity, absolute sameness, unity, non-duality. On the path, you would do different kind of sadhanas. Thakur had done a lot of sadhanas. Therefore, he's saying that we don't have any problem. Let's look at how that's been sort of explained in the commentary. Nishankairihi atisahasana. Nishankai means what? Without any sanka, without any doubt, means it's just they're being foolhardy. Shruti pramanyam avagyanat. They are even ignoring what are the central theses in the Upanishads. Avagyanadvihi, those who do not know, and they are ignoring the central thesis, the central insight in the Upanishads. Anyavadivihi, these are the proponents of other schools of thought. Advaitam, Bigalita, Asesa Vedam, Sad, Avagyatam, Tiraskritamiti Ched Uchyate. If you say, if I agree with them, if I don't fight with them, then I'm ignoring my own absolute position. Okay, let me explain to you. Tehi, that particular duality by them, yat pratipaditam, what they established through their logical arguments, jagat satyatvam, and they accept that this phenomenal world is absolutely real. Tad avajanata mityatvena anadaranam kurvatam asmakam ka kshatihi. So they do not know the final. They do not know what is intended. What is the intention behind this whole Upanishadic statements? That this is a very, very transient, phenomenal reality. And they are now ignoring this Vedantic thing, and they are obsessed with their own point of view. We don't lose anything. If there's anything to lose, it's they are losing it. Vidyandam bahava shrutyartha vimukhaha. And then, there are so many people on earth who are averse to what are the central thesis, what are the central insight in the Upanishads. Paraswara virudhartha avinivishta, and they are fighting with each other. They have their own points of view. Vivida, Vivida darsana pravartakaha, there's a printing error here. So they have different schools of thought, and they are propagating and expounding different theories, theological positions. Tehi asmakam na vivadaha. Tehi na asmakam vivadaha. We don't want to be fighting with them. That is what is the commentator is trying to say. Let's first make sense of how different schools of thought are arguing different positions. That's a very important question that you will raise. If you look at the Charvakas, interestingly, the book's name is Brihaspati Shvitra, isn't it? So he was some Brahmin scholar who was the first materialistic, or you can say an atheist or a positivist, a naturalist in ethical terms. If you say, what is Swarga? He said, Nari Alinganam. Embracing a beautiful girl, that's heaven. What do you mean by? And he makes fun of Brahmins saying, look at these idiots. They're wasting their life doing so many pujas and mugging of the Vedas, wearing some bloody few threads on their shoulder and all. What is this complete wastage of their time and energy? They could enjoy life. Yavat jivet sukham jivet rinam krutva gritam jivet. Relax. It's a typical American thing. Have 10 credit cards and go on a buying spree, have a good life, and then ultimately you will file for bankruptcy or insolvency. What's next? You will have a miserable life. Are you going to have a good life if you don't buy things and enjoy your life? Enjoy your life. Pleasure is the highest goal. Hedonists in the Greek tradition. And then you had Jeremy Bentham and a little qualified John Stuart Mill. Of course, a little sophisticated than that, but you had the utilitarians and the hedonists in the Western tradition. We had much before that Charvak. And then you have the Sankhya Darsana. What the Sankhya Darsana people say? Prakriti Purusha Vedana, there is Purusha, which is pure consciousness, no agency. Pradhana, they use this word Prakriti, which has agency but doesn't have Chaitanya. Comes in contact with Purusha, the Srishti comes. Very sophisticated theory. This is the first philosophical school in India without a single reference to God. I'm talking about Nirishwara Sankhya. There are two Sankhya Vadas in India. One is Nirishwara Sankhya and there is Seshwara Sankhya. There's a Sankhya, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is Seshwara Sankhya, they believe in God. Whereas if you talk about the Nirishwara, if you look at the Kapila, the original, the ancient Sankhya Shastra, there is no reference to God whatsoever. Therefore, they said that the Purusha are multiples. Each unit of consciousness is independent and gets liberated when it realizes that I'm trapped in this material envelope. I'm not this. We are not going into the details. Duality is there. And then if you say the Kanada, right? That is the Vaisesika Darshana. Karnavaksha was a very austere Brahmin philosopher who used to go to the cornfields and pick up leftover food grains and come and boil rice and eat and meditate all the time. He, in a certain sense, is the first physicist. Yeah. And then he gave his own theories about atoms. We know that Democritus is the one who talked about atoms in the Greek tradition, but Pranada is the first guy to have talked about atoms. He talked about gravitation. He talked about relativity, inertia of rest, and inertia of motion. A lot of interesting ideas that is there in the Vaisheshika Sutras. He says that you have all these atoms which are kind of assembled into this material realities that we see, but he believes in God. Okay, he's not opposed to the Vedas, but he uses strong arguments. He says there's no need to draw in Upanishads to prove what I'm saying. I'll prove through logic. The first rationalist philosopher. But he's a dualist. For him, this phenomenal reality is absolutely real. And then if you look at these Buddhists, there are certain variants. Of course, the absolute, the Sunyavadis, Mula Madhyamika Karika, this non-dualist, absolutely. But there are certain variants. They accept. You have certain schools of thought, the Vaibhasikas and stuff like that. They accept external reality to certain. So all these, and then of course you have the Vaishnavas and you have the Shaivas, and all these people accept the samsara as real because God has created them. The Muslims, the Christians, all of them accept this phenomenal reality as absolute. So what is Vidyaranya's central thesis? Ete sarve yukti pradhanaha vyavahara sattam avalambya pravartante. They are looking at the material, the processes that you see in your everyday life, they are taking that too seriously. They don't want to go beyond that. Tesang anusaram yaha yagad vaichitra pratyaya upajayate saha vyavahara drishya swikartavya eva advaita vedanta se tu virodha na tatra ato hi advaita vedantaha व्यवहार से निषेधम न करोति किंतु तस्य परमार्थ सत्ताम निराकरोति. This is one of the commentaries. One of these, what do you call it, translations, simplification of the text. What he's trying to say is that whatever they are saying, we got no fight. They are accepting what we call phenomenal reality, and we have no problem because we are talking about unity at a higher level, which is not visible to the eyes. And by doing this, we are absolutely not ignoring our foundational allegiance of conviction that the absolute is one and not two. And if they do tiraskar of our view, they are doing tyaga of our view. We don't, and then they accept the duality of the samsara as absolutely real because they don't know that we also accept it, but as mityatvena. That is a temporary, ephemeral, transient, phenomenal reality. Therefore, they want to us. We don't have any problem. They are not looking at the real insight in the Upanishads. They are obsessed with their views. We know the real inside of the Upanishads, and therefore we don't fight with them. But we are not ignoring our position because agreeing with them at a phenomenal level is no challenge to our foundational belief or conviction. Let's go to the next verse. Here now, Falasruti. What is the benefit of it if you do this Advaita Vedanta? Is there something to be gained, or we're just wasting our time? Dveta avagya phalam advaitam. When you refute these dualities, what is the outcome of it? You realize the Advaita thing. The non-duality is what you realize within you to be the absolute truth. Dvaitavagya prayojanam aha dvaiteti. Why should you ignore their views? Don't fight, ignore. Stay focused on the absolute truth, as indicated in the Upanishads. So, what is that? द्वेतावज्ञा सुनिस्ता चेद अद्वैते धीस्थिरा भवेत् स्तर्यैः तस्यापमान एष जीवन मुक्त इतिर्यते. There is a book called Jivana Mukti Viveka written by Vidyaranya Muni, who is the author of this beautiful text. What is Jivana Mukti? Living liberated. Moksha means what? This whole sansara gets negated with the realization of the ultimate truth. Vidyaranya Muni, you got to look at his individual life as well. He was the royal advisor to the king of Vijayanagara Empire. He was one of his ministers. He was one of the greatest Sanskrit scholars. He wrote several books. One of his brothers, Sayana, was again a great Vedic scholar who wrote the Sayana Bhashya. There was another brother, Bharati Tirtha, was younger to him, but took sannyas at an early age. And Vidyaranya Swami is said to have taken ultimate sannyasa at a very late age. And he only finished about 6 chapters of Panchadashi according to certain speculations. And the rest of them were in fact completed by his brother Bharati Tirtha out of some respect for and love for his brother, who left his body at the age of 86, Vidyaranya Swami. He has also written a phenomenal book called Sarvadarsana Sangraha, where he's discussing all schools of thought in India. He was encyclopedic. Now, what he's trying to say here is that when you have Advaita Vedanta completely analyzed, internalized, and you become self realized, you don't commit suicide or vanish into the jungle. You're here. Then you participate in Leela. So, in a sense, Vidyaranya Muni is talking about there is a stage of life called Jivana Mukti where outwardly you are still engaged. You are not having any raga, you don't have any karta or bhokta buddhi. But you are not hiding in a cave or anything. You are here and now, not a problem. But you are not tossed by anything. And he would be using the Brahma Sutra Vakyas. Tad adhigame uttara purvayor aslesha vinasho. Once you have realized the self, all sanchita karmas get destroyed, and the kriyamana karmas which you are supposed to follow, they will not affect you. And the prarabdha karma will give results. So far, others are concerned because they are looking at your body mind complex as real. But you, Shankaracharya has clarified this. There is no prarabdha for the real self realized soul. So here he's talking about a two-stage liberation. There's one stage called Jivana Mukti, where you have realized the truth, but you're not going anywhere. You just here, you are here for a while because there is prarabdha karma. And then you abandon the body and you go, that's Videha Mukti, where the body falls, there is no return. That is moksha, ultimate moksha. But because Vedanta talks about Sadhya Mukti, once you realize that absolutely, truth, even if you're in this body, you're not affected by anything, you are called as Jivana Mukta. And that is what is explained here. Dveta avagya stita ched. If you can establish in you a complete denial, rejection, without fighting with anyone, if you are absolutely freeing your mind for any temptation to believe in dualities, you know, you cannot have Advaita Vedanta and everything, but it would have been good to have that car and what about the house? And, you still have a few. If someone gives a house yours, living in that house, does it affect your Vedanta? No. You're not supposed to have any attraction for anything. That avagya, you're not at all inclined, you're not having any affinity experienced in you towards these dualities. If that is so, it's firmly established in you, advite dhihi stira bhavet, then your realization. So what they say is vasana tyaga manonasha are two things to be achieved after you realize the truth. You complete your theory classes, you got a PhD. Now you have to do your PDF where there's no guide to give you any guidance. So you are having a project proposal and you have to now get into doing the things. The tragedy of these days, the kind of technocrats we have very bright students who mug up a lot of questions and answers and they clear the IIT entrance. Then they go and do the course. They don't want to get into the business of doing any technocratic innovation. They're either doing some job somewhere to get money or they go back to Kota and start another coaching institute. And that's what happens with Advaita Vedanta. So the application of what we realize is not there. But he's saying first you have to realize it. And once you have that, then the Advaita Siddhanta will be firmly established in you. One is denial of what is false, then you have establishment of what is real in our consciousness. Sthirehi tasyaha puman esha. And then tasyaha sthirehi puman jivan mukta iti iryate. If I, whose mind is so deeply established, firmly established in the Advaita realization, he is verily called Jivana Mukta. He's a liberated soul. He's living, he's not dead. And there's so many people. You have Papaji. They would have some semblance, certain theories. Appaya Dikshit says, Ajnana Lesha. So far you are in this body, there'll be some semblance of ignorance and its outcomes. Like, for example, a snake comes to bite you, you might suddenly become a little afraid. But you had great realized souls. Like, for example, the Gajanan Swami of Maharashtra. He was sitting on a cot and somebody was giving a long speech on Advaita Vedanta. He got hold of that guy. He said, "Come here, sit with me." He put him on a cot next to him and asked his followers, set fire to this cot. And that guy was, screaming, "Save me. Why are you setting fire to me?" He said, "No, I'm sitting next to you. I'm not. Why are you preaching something you haven't realized?" So you have people like Gajanan Swami who would be eating from the same leaf plate on which there's some food along with dogs. He absolutely had complete non-duality in his life. You heard Swami Nityanand, and there are so many liberated souls that we have heard, like Nisarganath Datta, you heard Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Many of these people, they did not abandon anything, they did not run away anywhere. They were here interacting with people, taking a bath, having food, talking. They were not they did not grow horns or look like a angel or anything. They remained and looked like a human being till the very last moment of their life. And if you look at the gospel, Thakur explains again and again, I have no feeling whatsoever towards this cancer that you're talking about. I'm saying this pain, I'm talking to you. What should I tell you? What will you understand if I say what exactly I am? You got no clue. So, he's saying, Sti dhira bhavet, dvaita avagya dvaitasya, jagada jivaishwaradi vaichitra vishishtasya jagadaha. What is the sansara? There is God, there is this material reality, it's all created, there are processes, they are interacting with each other, cooperating, fighting. Mithyatvena tiraskaraha susthita chet. What is dvaita avagya? That this sansara is there, but it's not permanently real. It's not nitya. So you have this nitya nitya vastu viveka, and therefore this is mithya. Doesn't mean completely false. This is something which is playing out, and we accept it. So tiraskara sustita. Once you can firmly realize this is not something that should attract me, tempt me. Supratistita cheda advaita brahmani dhihi buddhi sthirabhavit. If that is first, if you can remove all the viruses in your hard disk and your RAM. In RAM, there would be some appearances here and there. If you can clean up your hard disk, then you can put in new files. You can put in some new programs. So what is that? Brahmani dhihi sustita bhaved. Your mind will be now firmly established in the Brahman. Tasya buddhehe, of that intelligence, that means tasya buddhehe, that buddhi, that Brahma buddhi, stharye sati eso advaite sthiri bhutadhihi man jivan muktaha iti iryate. The guy whose mind, whose understanding, whose conviction, all mental processes are now aligned with one internal foundational conviction, is that the phenomenal reality is just an appearance. The real reality with capital R is without any vikara. If that is the case, we can call him Jivana Mukta. It's a very interesting, and he has written a whole book called Jivana Mukta uh, Viveka to explain it. Now, what is this Dvaita Avagya? He's saying Jagat Jiva Ishwaradi Rupasya Bheda Prapanchasya Mithyatva Buddhi. Mithyatva Buddhi is what? That there is God, there is samsara. For a Christian, for a Muslim, for a Vaishnava, for a Mashaiva, whosoever believes in one personal God, for him, he is the absolute reality. There's no going beyond it. But for the Advaita Vedanti, the joke about Thakur is that when he was feeding Ma Kali, what happened? Mathur Sahib's nephew saw him eating. He was giving it to Ma Kali, but he was actually, from another point of view, who was looking at him, he was eating himself. He didn't, I mean, he had entered that realm where he and Kali were not different entities. There's a beautiful sutra in the Shiva Sutras where Lord Shiva is telling Parvati, do you know this guy? And then Parvati becomes a little curious. He says, whatever he wants happens. And how is that? You are the Almighty God. This guy, one of your devotees, whatever he says happens. Lord Shiva smiles. He says he doesn't exist anymore. I have entered him. And whatever he's thinking is my thought. Whatever he's doing is whatever I'm doing. Means he has just become a human medium. He's become a human platform for divine work. In that kind of a situation, people say whatever he says happens. But actually, he's not doing anything because he doesn't even exist. Why didn't you understand it? He doesn't even exist as an individual. He's in that state in which there is Jiva and Shiva have become one. And that is the ultimate realization. So, what is that? Avagya is not tiraskara, it's not refutation. But you have mithyatva nishchaya. That all that is I see all around me is not absolutely real. Phenomenally, yes, I got no problem. Once you have that, then you become a Jivan Mukta. Done. So we'll now graduate to the next verse. Jivan Muktehe phalam Gita Vakyena Udaharati. He's now going back to the 72nd, the last verse of the second chapter. Because it started with Arjuna asking Bhagavan, Sita Pragyasya Ka Bhasa. How do you describe a guy who is self-realized? And then Bhagavan gives the Lakshana of the Jivana Mukta. The Shastra says that whenever any guru mentions the Lakshanas, what are the characteristics of a person who is self-realized, that is our sadhana. Whatever describes a person who is realized is what we should try to practice. It's like a mother who tells a child, so how much did you score in the last test? He says, Mom, I got stuck at 98. The mother says, yeah, I really appreciate it. What about this friend of yours? Now he again scored 100. The mother laughs and says, yeah, but do you know what he does? Now what, Mom? He doesn't only focus on the textbooks. He reads several books and practices different problems and solution manuals. And he doesn't play so much cricket like you. That's all he says. But I appreciate the son. And son realizes that if I have to score 100 and 100, not a great goal to have, just for an example, then he realizes that I have to be like him. For example, the Shastra says in the Subhasitas, Namananti Gunino Janaha, Namananti Farino Vrikshaha. Why so? In order to inculcate in us the virtue of humility. That if there is wisdom, there has to be humility. If there is no humility, you can be sure there is arrogance. And if there is arrogance, there is ignorance. There is a continuum. Therefore, Bhagavan now explains in several verses, starting from the verse number 56 or 58 till 78, about what describes a self-realized soul. The last verse of that chapter is this. Esa brahmi sthiti partha nenam prapya vimuhyati stitva syamanta kalepi brahma nirmanam richati. Esa brahmi sthiti partha. I'll tell you that Jivan Mukti Avastha is like what? That is Brahmi Sthiti, is established in the Brahman. No enam prapya bimuchyati. Once he is there, he doesn't turn back. There are several turnarounds in our life. There are a lot of turnabouts. We go and we fall. You know that famous book by Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. He's trying to raise a stone to the peak of the mountain. He establishes it, it rolls down. He picks it up again, and that's how he describes our existential predicament. We overcome a lot of weaknesses, and these weaknesses pull us down. But the Bhagavad Gita says there is a stage where once you reach, there is no turning back. Thakur Ramakrishna used to give an example that if you have the seeds, if you have a conducive environment, germination will happen. Shoots will come out. Like you have a bit of humidity, some water, air, sunlight, germination happens. What if you, so if you keep some food grains like moong seeds or whatever, you will have, if it's very, it's a little humid climate, if you keep potatoes and you forget and you go on a picnic party or on a tour and you come back, you'll find germination, the shoots have come out after 5-10 days, no? But what if you have actually dry fried the potatoes? Anything going to happen there? Nothing. What if you have fried the food grains that you have? Varjita. If you fry it, then any germination takes place? No. Thakur says that you have to fry your ragadvesha, your karta bhava, and all the bheda buddhis you have. Once you have destroyed them summarily, there is no further germination. There is no coming back. That is what is captured here. That is Jivan Mukti, because there is Ajnana Nasa Uttara Sthiti. Ajnana is the mother of all these problems. Once that avidya has been eliminated, you have flushed it out. Children will not be here. Drive away the mother, the children hold the mother. Stitva syanta asyam antakalepi, asyam stito stite. If a person is established there, antakalepi, nirvanam richati, he gets ultimate liberation. And this particular shloka has two different interpretations. I would like to clarify before we go to the next sloka, which is the traditional interpretation. That is what is given by Sankara Bhashya, Madhusudana Saraswati, Gurartha Deepika in the Bhagavad Gita, if you follow them. What do they say? Madhusudana Saraswati, or say Shankaracharya says, that if a person destroys that ignorance, that Dvaita Darshana, and his mind or his consciousness is established in this Brahmadi, is firmly established in the Brahman, then even in old age, because you have a lot of infirmities who will come and attack you in old age, even then he doesn't lose out. It's like a guy who is a great fighter, who is a great cricketer, he gets a little injured and all the wickets are down, still he wins the match. Or somebody who is doing a Tirtha Yatra and he gets physically injured, but still he completes the journey. Something similar, that despite a lot of weaknesses and loss of the vigor and power of your conviction, the mind also becomes forgetful and very, very infirm in old age. And I have seen, you must have also seen, many of these, if you go to any ashrams, many of these monks, many of these people who have renounced or they are living, for them the ashram becomes more of an old age home, and they have a bit of reappearance, a lot of old sanskaras. They might behave like children, they remember their childhood, they might pick up a fight, this, that. There are one category of people. Then I have seen in Kailash ashram, there was one guy, old guy, who was married, he lost his wife, then he distributed all his property amongst his son and daughters, and then he took sannyas, and he was absolutely illiterate, couldn't read anything. So he learned alphabets at the age of 60 in Kailash, 65 or 70 in Kailash ashram. He used to take care of the cows, a dairy farm in the ashram, and he would be raising a lot of crops for the ashram in the garden, vegetable garden, kitchen garden. And he'll be working from night to day, and he'll go and sit in Upanishad classes. But in the Upanishad classes, he'll be listening and he'll be doing his japa. And I would say, "Do you understand anything?" He said, "No, but these are good words and they fall on my ear. And so I feel very good." And he used to live like that. And towards the end of his life, I have had a discussion with him several times because everybody see him as a gardener. He was 80 plus, corona, he had no problem. He refused any injection or anything. He lived happily. After that, there was a minor health illness, and then he was taken to the hospital. He came back, and he used to look for anybody he thought was a serious student of Vedanta. He said, please come, Maharaj. कहाँ जा रहे हो? Now he said, मुझे कठोपनिषद लाइन में बताओ, because मेरा जाने का समय हो गया है. Can you imagine? This guy in the last week of his life chased the monks in the ashram, and people were scared of him. He used to think that he has gone mad. He used to say, no, you have to read one sloka from any Upanishad and tell me the meaning, because it's time for me to go. So you must read it out of me. And exactly after 7 days, he had a bit of milk the previous night. Early morning, he left his body. After attaining the arti and everything, he was perfect. He left his body. Now, that kind of a guy, he's not enamored by anything around him. He was a good example of perfect sannyasa without having to do all this Vedanta sadhana and all. He was a Nishkama Karma Yogi and a great bhakta. But then he had a great affinity for the jnana, because of which he finally landed up in Kailash ashram, where actually, if you're somebody who is very interested in the textual understanding of truth, a lot of Shastra Charcha and all you go, but he was there. And there are several other such people who will be reading in physical pain, and yet their minds are firmly established in the truth. There was one great Chote Maharaj, hmm, Harihar Tirtha Maharaj, in Kailash ashram, who refused any power position, whatever. And he spoke Sanskrit, sometimes Hindi, a great guy. And then, he will go to Ganges and pick up some stones and come and give it to Lord Shiva as flowers. He says, don't touch the flowers. Lord Shiva doesn't like somebody to spoil his gardens. He was a completely different kind of an individual. And when he was lying on his bed and he had some problem, he had osteoarthritis, his knees had broken, he was in acute pain. The next Mandaleshwar went to him, are you feeling a lot of pain today? He smiled and said, who will feel the pain? Remember, this was a day before his death. Who is there to feel the pain? Mind firmly established in Advaita. Body is aching. Painkiller injections are given. He absolutely pays no attention to whatsoever. No food, nothing. Maybe a glass of milk or something. And he was in that absolute Brahmi sthiti. That is what is mentioning here. Stitva syam antakalepi brahma nirvanam richati. He gets the ultimate liberation. Now, antakalepi is the word on which there are two alternative interpretations. Okay, so we will do both the interpretations. It's a beautiful shloka. Esa yasyam sarvana kaman vihaya, the guy who has renounced all the desires. Nishpruha nirmamo, he doesn't have any spruha, I will do this. And nirmama, he doesn't have any ahankara or mamakara. Nirahankara puman, that guy, charati sastitihi, the way he dwells in that sthiti, that state of consciousness, sastitihi, brahmi sthitihi, brahmani bhava brahmi. Why the word brahmi? Because it firmly established in Brahman, that is why the adjective is brahmi. सा स्थिति ही, that Brahmi स्थिति, सर्वकर्म संन्यास प्रवेगा ब्रह्म भाव प्राप्तिर इत्यर्थः. Karma sannyasa. You have sometimes, what do you call it? You do nishkama karma yoga. You are called a nitya sannyasi. But it's not sarva karma sannyasa. You are still doing nishkama karma yoga. Sarva karma sannyasi abandons everything. It's only for sarira sthiti. He'll take a little food, he'll take a bath. He's not going to do anything for loka sangraha or anything. He might do, but he's absolutely not in any of this. That means he has taken formal sannyasa. Brahma bhava praptirityartha he partha enam sthiti prapya na vimukhyati. Once you are there, there is no more delusion. You shall never again get scared of the snake, because you know it's a rope. Even in darkness, it looks like a snake. snake, you'll laugh. He said, yeah, it looks like a snake. Look at it. Doesn't it look like a dark black cobra? Yes, it does. You smile, but it's a snake. It's not a snake, it's a rope. Can you enter the room? Of course I can. And you enter. You don't have any fear. Everybody believes it's a snake. Where you know it's a rope. Prapya na bimukhyati na punaha dveda krita vyamoham gacchati. Because of the dualities, if you accept it, then you have bhaya. Dvaitat bhayupajayate. Once you believe in dualities, is there somebody who's going to come and kill? Most of the people who have anxiety and fear and everything, they are dvaitis because they believe somebody is going to trouble me. Who is going to trouble me? If there is someone, Advaita Vedanta says there is no one, there is only Brahman. These are appearances. It's like a dream. Bhaya kahan se aayega? Can you go to the cremation ground? Actually, there's a rule for a sannyasi to at least visit a cremation ground twice in a week and look at the, burials or the cremation activities taking place, funeral pyre, because this body is a joke. So you're not supposed to take it too seriously. Sannyasa purvaka brahma bhaprapti ityartha naha punar dveta krita vyamoham. Vyamoha, that delusional temptation to believe that the phenomenal reality is real. No, he doesn't believe in that. Savidwan antakalepi. Antakalepi sarira patana samaye asyaha stitva brahma nirvanam brahma nivritim richati gachati. When he is going to abandon his body, he has videha mukti. So anyway, he's abandoning his body, he's not going to come back. Kimuta brahmacharyadeva sanyasya brahmani avastiti stitasya iti api apehe swarashyam. Why is saying antakalepi api? Why you mention? He's saying a guy who has lived, he had married, he had children, he took care of them, he had a job and everything, and then he renounced everything, he became a sannyasa. But once he is able to remove avidya from him, he shall get liberated. Even in old age, when the body is falling, there are all reasons to be tempted to believe that the sansara is real, I'm in pain. He doesn't have that. What to talk about somebody who has taken brahmacharya eva, he was brahmachari, never got married, he became a sannyasi. Of course, it's going to be very easy for him. There are two interpretations here, and the real interpretation here is mentioned by Vidyaranya Swami. What he's trying to say is that, what do you mean by antakalepi? So there are dehandara paryantam tasya bandhana bhava na vadate. Once you are established in the Advaita truth, then you are not at all affected. Now, in the next verse, sorry, I am just coming to the earlier verse. So this is done. So in the next verse, we have 5 minutes. So we can do 2 more. Avadartha vikalpya vibhrunoti saditi. So what do you mean by antakalepi? One is in old age, when you abandon the body. But there is a Vedantic interpretation that word antakala. Anta here means end of avidya, end of ignorance. Okay. So there is a problem in the windows you're opening and you're operating. There is certain virus with which your program or your computer is infested. If you can remove the virus, then this program operates. Till you have a solution to that virus, the program will again and again, your computer is going to go on a hang. There are going to be problems. So that virus called avidya has to be flushed out. You have to clean. If anything remains, you are in problem. Antakala here, he says, means avidya nivriti without anything remaining behind. That is one interpretation. Then he will give the traditional interpretation. Let's do ucharanam of this. Sadadvaite nrite dvaite yadyonyakya yad anyonyakya vikhyanam tasyantakalastad bheda buddhireva nachetaraha. First, he is distinguishing between who would see that there is a return, there is prarabdha and all that, and who would not see any prarabdha, any dualities, whatever. Sad advaite, anrite dvaite. So you were doing dvaita, You are doing sad asad viveka, nitya nitya vastu viveka. Sad advaita is sad. Asad is what? Dvaita. Duality is asad or anrita. Anrita means lie. Yad anyonyekya vichanam. And then Bhagavan Shankaracharya in the Brahma Sutra introduction writes Satyanrite Mithinikrite. The problem is we mix up truth in falsehood. Itiretara. We impose the qualities of one on the other. Sat is Brahman, but we say Prithvi exists. Only one thing exists, that is Brahman. All other things are deriving their existence from the Brahman. So the quality or the attribute or the dharma of the Brahman is superimposed on these temporary realities. And the qualities of these temporary realities is superimposed on the Brahman. That is the iteretara. Okay, and there are different kinds of superimpositions. As we go forward, we'll discuss this. So that you see them as one. You are saying the sansara is real. Okay. But once you realize Tattvamasi, whatever you see is absolutely, the sansara is nothing but Brahman. Sarvam khalvidam Brahma. All that you see is verily Brahman. Means not car, house, everything is Brahman. The foundational reality which provides the platform for all these projections to appear as real is real. All these appearances are not real. The foundation, so you'll do Dvaita Tiraskar. The general foundational truth is real. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma doesn't mean everything you see is Brahman. Everything exists, persists, flourishes, appears, disappears on that undeniable reality called Brahman. Therefore, he's saying, when you see the tasya antakalaha tad bheda buddhireva nacha itaraha. Okay? If you look at the commentary, that is beautifully explained. Sad advaite anrite mithya rupe dvaite. So there are these two ways of looking at it, two perspectives. One, you realize that only one thing is true, that is Advaita Brahman, and the sansara is Maya Rupa, is a product of Maya, it's not real. So, Anyonya Aikya Vichanam, Anyonyasya Ekabhavena Vichanam, Satyanatayoho, Mithinigaranamiti Yat, Tasya Andakale Avasana Kalo Nama. So, how is trying to say Antakala? We always mix up the true. We are organizing a marriage ceremony, a wedding ceremony of falsehood and truth. That is sansara. Falsehood marries truth and tries to pollute the truth. The truth can never be polluted. Other people think that's one reality. When that marriage comes to an end, finally, you know this is false, that is true, there is no real marriage, this is just delusional. That is what is antakala, avidya. Tad bheda buddhireva tayora dvaita. Tad advaita dvaitayora bheda buddhi vivechanam eva antakala iti uchyate. So what is the end time antakala? Death. Death of this delusion. Death of this delusional acceptance of the phenomenal reality as correct, real, evident, foundational. Antakala is end of this conundrum of samsara in which we think everything is real. Okay. When that comes to an end, that is antakala. Itaraha sarira patanakalo na antakalaha. In Laukika Drishtya, falling of the body or death, biological termination of our existence is called antakala. He's saying that is not what is antakala. Jivanamuktasya prananam utkramanat, prananam anutkramanat, because Jivanamukta natasya prana utkramante atra eva samabiliyante iti shrutehe. Uttaratapini Upanishad says Utkramana means the Jivatma goes to Swargaloko, Pithruloko, Narko, whatever. The guy who is liberated, the guy who has realized the Brahman, he doesn't go anywhere. He's here and now. There is no Swarga, there is no Devaloka, nothing. Liberation is here and now. Therefore, what do you mean by Antakala? Antakala is termination of your ignorance. So let's hold our discussion here, and we'll continue our satsang in the next week. And so we'll do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Guru Bhyo